attention because, we're going to do men's breakfast, but I always try to partner something like that with some work to really, make you guys do more work than just the week. Because why? That would be lame, right? You don't want to just work during the week. You got to work during the weekend. So we are going to be converting the office there into a nursery. And so I would love for some of you to help with that, and we're going to figure that out. I don't know what it's going to look like, but the red carpet might be gone. So that's pretty fun, pretty cool, but someone has to scrape glue off the floor. So it might be me. I don't know. Kids, you guys can head out. Have a great time. We'll see you later. Victoria and I got to go to Sunnybray last week, and I was doing their worship for them at a youth camp, so that was pretty fun. Just talk to Gemma. All of you talk to Gemma at one time and say, how was it? How amazing was it, Gemma? Was it so good? Gemma's right over here. If you don't know who Gemma is, just go talk to her. She'll just chat your ear off about the amazing weekend she had. But it is pretty cool. I'm very grateful to be able to have people like, Todd and Tim, who are within the grander scheme of the fellowship and of who we're connected to, come, and you get to meet some of these people, right? It's not just me in a vacuum. There's people who are around us. So Todd was one of my mentors for a long time through my schooling. And then Tim, I've known Tim a long, long time from camp and from other stuff. So it's pretty awesome that they will come and they will fill in, but also you get to see these people and see what's happening and hear a bit about fellowship and the camp. The camp has a lot going on. It's a pretty awesome camp. So, get interested in those things. It doesn't have to just be this here now. We are bigger than it seems, right? And so if you want to head to Matthew, we're in Matthew. We finished chapter 5. Give yourselves a round of applause. Good job. There for a while, I know. Yeah, little one, good. And this is what Jesus is talking about, right? We're filling full of the law. Hey, you've heard it said, you've been taught wrong. Here's all the things that I say, okay? You're not just meeting status quo anymore. This isn't just about, the look of the Pharisees and the scribes. It's actually deeper. He looks at the heart. He goes within. And so he's been looking at this, right? This is what I say. Go the second mile, love your enemies, right? All these crazy principles that we look at and say, I don't know if I could do it. It feels impossible. And so this is kind of the head that Jesus is getting at. This is what he's doing. He says, here's the law of the knowledge. Here's the law. Here's the law of Christ. Here's my heart. Here's how we want to make this thing full. You can know about this, okay? Here we go. This is what it looks like. But Jesus doesn't leave us in our head, okay? If this one thing you want to know about Jesus, he doesn't leave you in your head. He goes to the heart. He always goes to your life. He goes to what you worship. He goes to what forms you. He goes to your identity. He goes to the things that you love other than him. He goes to your sin, and he says, let's live this now. And so this is kind of where chapter 6 moves when we go to chapter 6. Let's live this thing. And so he's going to give us some examples. Examples we often hate, I think, because he's too relevant. It's too real. Just use some other things, Jesus. But he says, let's live this. What's it look like to live this in your life? So if you go to chapter 6, verse 1 in Matthew, we'll be there. It says this, be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others, to be seen by them. Otherwise, you will have no reward with your Father in heaven. And so right off the bat, Jesus uses this word, be careful. Okay? Be careful. And it's a pretty big warning. He starts you off with a warning in chapter 6. He says, let's live it. Be careful. When I was younger, we had 3 boys in my house. So I'm the youngest, and then there's a middle, and then obviously a middle, 3. And then an oldest. And we had, similar-ish age. We're within 5 years of each other. And we would have friends over all the time because my dad was the youth pastor. And so our basement was filled with, just guys all the time. Just dudes everywhere. Probably smelled horrible, locker room, I don't know. And my dad would always say, because we'd go down there and we would have all these crazy friends and we'd start, this sounds weird saying this now, but, guys like wrestle and do dumb stuff. Helmets and gloves, you heard of that, where you put like a hockey helmet on, gloves, and you just fight like it's like boxing. Like this is what we did in the basement. And he would always say, hey, be careful. Get out of my basement, basically. I don't want you in there. Just go outside or something, you idiots. Like you're going to break something. And so we do this MMA, mixed martial arts. We're fighting down there. And lo and behold, my dad's like, what are you doing? We're like, we're just hanging out, fighting a bit. He's like, go outside, be careful. And one of our friends picks up by the legs, picks him up, and slams him through the wall. As it, like, the entire drywall is just ruined. And we are just a little bit afraid of my dad, big scary dude. He's got a loud voice. And we just hear him say, what was that? And we all run out of the house. Because he said, hey, be careful, you idiots. You're all dumb. You're so stupid. Stop doing these things in my house. And he's had foresight, wisdom into the fact that if you wrestle in a basement that is a 10 by 10 square, something's going to break. And this is what Jesus says. Hey, be careful in your Christian life. Be careful with how you live. You're going to do stupid things, dumb things, tempting things. Life comes at you and it throws everything at you. It's not necessarily always easy. And Jesus says, I have foresight into when you want to follow me, I know what's going to happen in your life. I know the things and the trials and the troubles and the temptations that are going to come. Be careful, right? This Christian life, this walk, he's upping the ante. He's saying, you thought the scribes and Pharisees were holy. Well, guess what? I have something greater. And to achieve the greater, the bigger, you have to be careful. This isn't just about, I'm a Christian now, cool. I'm going to walk around and life is great and nothing happens and there's no temptation. I'm not going to fail. He says, guess what? It's coming. The foresight. So be careful. He starts with a warning. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. Otherwise, you have no reward with your Father in heaven. So, whenever you give to the poor, don't sound a trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be applauded by people. Truly, I tell you, they have their reward. But when you give to the poor, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So Jesus is getting at something here. He's getting at something that happens all the time in the church. Happens to you and me. And if you ask people, hey, why don't you like church, or why don't you go to church? And it's funny when you work in church ministry and as a pastor, whenever someone asks you, oh, what do you do, right? Like I'm getting my haircut the other day. Oh, you're a pastor in Logan Lake. I used to go to church. And it's the same conversation, right? Every time I talk to people about church and their church trauma and why they don't go to church. And I say, okay, well, what's your problem with the church? And this is the answer. Well, the people within it are hypocritical. The people who attend are hypocrites. And I say, you're right. They often are. They are. And this is why people hate church. And they have problems with it. And there's different dynamics and levels of hurt because people hurt people. We know that. And so Jesus, he says, let's look at the hypocrites. Right? And people in the church, we practice this righteousness often because we think it's what we should do, right? Or it's how we want people to see us, right? Like, well, this is the right thing to do. This is the good thing to do. And maybe if I do this, this person will think I'm awesome. I'm going to be glorified. And so they memorize all the worship song lyrics, right? They know the right songs. They listen to the Christian radio maybe. They say all the right stuff. You looked up movies on Plugged In. I don't know what you're doing, right? My mom looked up movies on Plugged In. Not a bad thing. Do you not know what Plugged In is? And what are they doing? They're practicing hypocrisy. Looked up Plugged In. It's fine. They practice hypocrisy in the church, right? You want to appear holy. You want to appear put together. You want people to see you a certain way. Put on this show, and what happens is, in the church, in religion, Jesus knows this, you get addicted to the rush of being someone in the church, powerful, influential, looking good, being good enough. And we get this hit when people look at us and we're like, yes, give me praise. Give me glory for the things I do. When you look at this word hypocrisy, originally it refers to the Greek. It was a play actor. So someone who was a hypocrite would act in Roman plays, or Greek plays. And so they would call them hypocrites. You're acting, you're playing. And this is what Jesus is calling people. Do not be someone who acts your whole life. You act like you have it together. You act like you love God. You act like you want to follow my commandments. But deep down, and this is the thing with these play actors, they would wear a mask. That was often what was happening in the plays. They had a mask. No one could see the identity. It was what you wanted to show people. And this is the picture, the word picture that Jesus is using. He's literally saying, if you live your life for praise, to look good, to be righteous, to receive honor, you're just an actor. You're fake. There's no depth to you. You live for the glory of people. People affirm you. People give you meaning. People are the things that shape your identity, not the glory of the Father. And so he says this word here. I love this word. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of people to be seen. We've talked about this, right? This course, Practicing the Way, that we had the ladies that went through in their Bible study. I would love to do another one with whoever would want to. And the whole concept of practicing the way is things in your life, your habits, your rhythms, your practices, what you give your attention to, what forms you. We've talked about this. All of these practices give you an end result of who you're going to become. And so if I practice pride, if I practice religiosity, if I practice all these things I think are just good for me, it's about me. It's for self-praise, self-glorification, and I become a hypocrite when I practice these things. And I love this question, and I think you should almost ask it every day. What are you practicing? What practices fill your life, impact your life? If you're practicing glory for yourself, right, but you're living this Christianese life, you live this life where you're like, well, yeah, I know God, I love God, but I actually love being important more. And this is a scary place to be. It's a really scary place to be because you're heading to self-deception. Now, it's one thing in your life to be deceived by people. It's one thing for people to lie to you, for you to assume something of someone, they let you down, to, have this facade around someone. But when you are practicing your self-righteousness, you're leading to self-deception, where you're telling yourself, I know God, I love God, I worship God, I want these things, and you're so deceived by your internal mind that actually God is saying, I don't know you. What do you mean? You love yourself. And you've deceived yourself in thinking that your righteousness is for God, but it's for you. And it's a scary, scary place to be, right? When you think about Satan, he's not coming for your huge acts of pain. He's not coming, well, I'm going to the bar. It's not like Satan walks into the bar with you and says, you're going to be an alcoholic tonight. That's not what Satan's doing. Satan likes the easy route. And we're giving it for him, right? He looks at your righteousness that you do for people in the church, in this amazing good space in religion, and he says, I like that. Do more of that. You think you're good. You think you love God. You think you're on the path of righteousness. You think you're living in the Beatitudes, humble, meek, pursuing right relatedness, but it's all for your glory. Stay there. Stay there, Satan says. And he takes the things of church, things that we are doing as good things, giving and worship and prayer and vision, prophecy, power, relationships, all these things of the church. And as we deceive ourselves, Satan says, I don't need to do anything else. You've done it to yourself. And he loves when you're in this place of justification of your holiness, just doing everything awesome in your life and people praising you, how much I give this much and, I serve and I do these things, and you're just self-righteous and you've done Satan's job for him. And he keeps you there. And he doesn't want you to be self-aware. He just wants you to be aware of how people look at you. One author puts it this way. He says, the Christian should always be anxious to know themselves. No other person truly wants to know themselves. The natural person thinks that they do know themselves and thereby reveal their basic trouble. They evade self-examination because to know oneself is ultimately the most painful piece of knowledge that a person can ever acquire. Because only the person who has truly seen themselves for what they are, who is likely to fly to Christ, to seek to be filled with the Spirit of God, who alone can burn out of them the vestiges of self and everything that tends to mar their Christian life and living. Self-righteousness leads to self-deception. And what Jesus is saying is, I need you to be so self-aware of your sin, of your patterns of life, of your practices, of the things that form you, of how you are living and who you're living for, your blind spots. Let people speak into your life, your sin patterns, your misplaced love. If you love yourself. And as Christians, we are supposed to be the most deeply self-aware, inward looking in the mirror and reflecting back and saying, am I just pursuing people? Galatians says this, right? If I want to please people, if people are my goal, if I just desire approval, I am not a servant of Christ. Revelation says this, come back to God. It's saying your first love. You've lost your first love that you once loved God. You loved the church. You loved the people. You loved to give and support. You loved to serve, but now it's for yourself. Come back to your first love, right? Like when people are first dating, they're so weird and crazy. I can't tell stories because my in-laws are here. They'll just be like, what? You were doing what? Right? You phone at midnight. They don't know. You're talking. This first love, right? It's infatuation. Give me more. I want all of it, all the time, every time. And you lose it. And so then Jesus gives us these examples. Beware. It's not about the people. And this is what it looks like, okay? This is what it looks like. Examples of hypocrisy. And this is what he wants to talk about. This is the first thing he talks about when he talks about hypocrisy. He talks about your money. And you all just clench a bit in your seat. Money, no. He doesn't bring up worship songs, liturgies. He doesn't bring up some specific doctrine or some problem. He says, do you know what you all have and you all love? Money. Do you know what you all have and you all abuse? Money. Do you know what you all have and you all need? Money. And this is what he says. He says this. So whenever you give to the poor, don't sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be applauded by people. Truly, I tell you, they have their reward. But when you give to the poor, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Martin Luther says this famous thing, okay? You've probably heard this. People go through 3 conversions. They go through the conversion of their head, right? I can know about God. My heart, my first love is back, and their pocketbook. Unfortunately, not all at the same time. Because we are like okay with knowing about God. I'm okay with learning about God. I'm okay with learning about Jesus. And then eventually maybe, yeah, you know what? You can have my heart. You can have my affections. You can have my purpose, my identity, but don't talk to me about my money. And Jesus, money is one of the things he talks about the most. And what Martin Luther is getting at is people who claim to follow Jesus, the last thing they'll ever do is give up possession. Give up the need for security here and now. Give up this need to feel, well, I'm not okay. I'm not well off, so I cannot be generous. We love it, we possess it, we acquire more, and we never become generous people. And this is what Jesus says. Listen careful. When you give, and you might hate that statement because this is the command, the assumption. If you follow me, if you want to be in my kingdom, if you've lived the chapter 5 and you get it, then you're going to give. It's going to be at the top priority. You know, I love this guy named Dave Ramsey. You might hate him. I don't care. But he talks about budgets, and he says, listen, you do your requireds, and then you give. Nothing else first. And this is what Jesus is saying. Hey, when you give, it's expected. What is the giving going to do to you? What's it for, right? It takes our focus off of ourselves. It actually creates character. You know, giving's hard. Sometimes I hate giving. I'm going to be honest. When I sit there and I say, I could do something else with this, and the Lord says, sure you could, but do you trust me? Do you trust that I'm going to build character? Do you trust that doing hard things grows you? Do you trust that even without this, that I will supply for your life, right? It attunes your heart to God who gave everything for you. It grows you up. You want to grow up in faith? Start giving. It gives you a greater perspective. Who's needy? How much do I have? You know, how could I give? How can I help? It just moves you to the people of the church and of our community. Right? I don't get why you wouldn't give. Literally, the scriptures talk about, hey, that if you give, you're generous, the Lord is going to give back. You are missing out on blessing when you are stingy, when you have a heart that is cold and say, I need it. And when you do that, when you give, Jesus says, guess what? You self-righteous people. No one needs to know about it. No one needs to hear about it. No one needs to know how much you give. I don't know. I'm not looking every month going, yep, okay, that's not what I'm doing over here. It's between you and God and a heart that pursues him. No one needs to know about it. And technically, no one needs it. God's not like, I need your cash. He says, I need your heart. People don't need it. I need it. And just so you know, by the way, in this church, it's been a blessing to see people give. Honestly, it's been a blessing to say, hey, we're going to take a chance on this young guy from Kelowna who has some tattoos and we're not sure about, and we're going to hire him. And guess what? It changes a budget, and it changes, you know, how much is required of a church, and this church has met those needs. That's amazing. This is a generous church that has said, we want people to see and know Christ through ministry, through this church, through the teaching, through preaching, through ministries of youth, through the kids. And you've stepped up, and that's a blessing. Do you know a lot of churches can't do that? A lot of churches don't do that. And it doesn't have to just stop there. It's not, oh, good, we've made it. Let's stop giving. That's not what we're doing. In fact, I would love to project further, right? We're renovating this office. Amazing, right? We can do things like that. We're going to reno the other room and try to make it more functional. Amazing. You know, I don't tell I tell everybody this. One day, I want to hire a youth pastor and say, hey, nobody invests into the youth of this community right now. No one, full time. I would love to see that. But do you know what happens? It happens through the giving. The generosity, and that's been amazing and powerful to see a church do that and meet the needs. It doesn't always happen. And just note what Jesus keeps bringing up here. He keeps saying this word, rewards. Rewards. And oftentimes in church, we get bent out of shape about, well, no, I need to feel nothing, aspire for little, and expect nothing. This is not what the New Testament and Jesus speaks about. It's actually the opposite. He says this in this verse alone, time and time again. Listen, the rewards of the Father. When you love him, when you're not pleasing people, when you please God, when you're pursuing God, the rewards of the Father, right? Run the race well. Do well in life. Do well for God, right? Good gifts from God. Me as a father, if I can give a good gift, how much greater are the gifts of God the Father? All these talk about rewards. And a writer said this, that all our works are going to be judged. That we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according to that he hath done. Whether it be good or bad, we should be interested in this matter of rewards. There's nothing wrong in it as long as the desire is the reward of holiness, the reward of being with God. There's nothing wrong with pursuing the reward from God. And this is the trade-off of what Jesus says be careful about. He says this, so whenever you give to the poor, don't sound a trumpet, okay? You're going to give, and don't make, no one needs to know about it, right? We're not going to check in the list. As the hypocrites do in the synagogues, on the streets, to be applauded by people. And he says this, truly I tell you, they have their reward. They have their reward. Living as a hypocrite, seeking the praise of people, as you get that self-gratification, you've deceived yourself, people are honoring you. They're like, oh, that's amazing. You're doing this, and you just take that. You're like, yeah, this is good. This feels good. You're rewarding yourself. And Jesus says, well, if that's the reward you want, that's all you're going to get. That's the trade-off. Heavenly reward, cool job, guy. Which one do you want? If you're getting praise and gratification from people, then that's it. That's what's left. This side of heaven, you got it. You received it. You already have your reward. If that's the type of worship you want to participate in, you miss out on my heavenly reward. You miss out on the reward of the Father. And so when you're giving, Jesus says this, but when you give to the poor, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And I love this because it's when you give. He's talking about your money, right? He's going all the way into money. When you give, don't even reward yourself. Don't even think about it. Don't go home with your spouse and say, man, we are generous. We just give, and we helped that person on the street corner. I flipped them a toonie. That was my last toonie, right? Don't even go home and talk about it. You will reward yourself, your self-deception. Praise yourself, your inner head. You're speaking to yourself. And God says, if you want to reward yourself, that you don't get the heavenly one. Don't even let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. I don't know if it's possible. Turn your brain off. I don't know. Because that's all you're going to get. Your own righteousness. Yourself. I don't want myself as a reward. When I think about me as a reward and my self-talk, and that sounds awful. What a horrible reward when I have bad days and I don't like myself and I don't like things I've done or said, and I'm maybe fighting with my wife. I'm like, I don't want that reward. It's all for Jesus. It's all for the Father. And he gives us another example. Move on. How to pray. He says, whenever you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, because they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by people. Truly, I tell you, they have their reward. But when you pray, go into your private room, shut your door, pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. When you pray, don't babble like the Gentiles, since they imagine they'll be heard for their many words. Don't be like them, because your Father knows the things you need before you ask him. All right, so again, Jesus says this. Listen, there's hypocrites in the church, these religious people. You're living for yourself. You want the glory. He's appealing to people. Don't do this. Your reward, if you're just living for the people, that's it. That's your reward. But there's a heavenly reward. And he says this about prayer. Hey, go into your private room. And prayer is a big one in the church because we love prayer. And prayer is a very good thing. It's a gift from God. It's how we connect with him. But we create it into this thing that becomes about the self, right? It becomes about self-worship. And so praying is not for people to see how good you are at praying. It's between you and God. Go to your private room. Go to your private room. And a private room, it was this inner room, this inner chamber with a thin, narrow hallway. It was pitch black. There's no windows. And often they would use this room as a place to put valuables, right? They'd put their kind of a storehouse, their valuables. And the Israelites, they would go to this inner room and they would meditate on the law, the Torah. This is where they would study their Torah or meditate and pray. And Jesus is saying, go to this room. Get alone. Be with God. And I love that this room is associated with value. Jesus is making this point, this basic, simple point. He says, when you make it to your inner room, you've already made it to the place of value. You've already made it to the presence of God. A theologian talks about practicing the presence of God. And it's not about the words you say, how holy you are, how amazing you are. When you can get to a place where you just say, God, I'm in your presence. Leave me here. Let me stay here. Let me know you. When you get alone with God, you have already reached the value. And Jesus says the value is not people, how they hear you, how you speak in front of them. Get with God. Be alone with him. And when you're in prayer or praying with people, Jesus says this, believe it or not, there's a better way to pray. And I love that he does that he does this contradiction of the Lord's Prayer, which we're not actually going to go fully through because we already did it in depth a couple months ago, so you can watch it online. But he says, listen, you don't need to pray crazy prayers, these, rambling things, big words. There's a better way to pray. Let me show you. Go be alone with God. And he says, when you pray, don't babble like the Gentiles, since they imagine they're going to be heard for their many words. Don't be like them, because the Father knows the things you need. Victoria and I have been blessed to go to some cool places, right? When we first got married, we went to Bali on our honeymoon. We went to Europe, and I'm kind of that guy, that big white guy that will over-communicate when I'm in other countries. Like, I'll talk like really like, hello, can I get, that guy. And it's like, who's this guy? Can he leave this coffee shop, please? We don't need him in here. And so we were in Bali on our honeymoon, and we're like, let's go to an excursion. Let's go blow our money. Let's go, parasailing on a boat, scuba diving, all these things. And so we're at the desk, and I'm over-communicating to this person, and they clearly are not getting the message, right? I'm just that big white dude going, we want to have fun. Yeah, let's go. And they're like, yeah, okay. And so eventually, as I'm miscommunicating, over-communicating, not doing well, this person pulls up on this little moped, this little Balinese guy, and he just pats the back seat. And I'm like, okay. So I walk over, I hop on this moped. True movie scene moment, right? Like, we're like down the street. Like, people must have been staring. I don't know what. I don't know where I'm going either. I don't know what's happening. I have no clue. And I'm trying to communicate to this person, right? And then eventually we just pull over to the side of the road. He just taps on an ATM. And I pull all my money out and just give him a bunch of cash. He's like, good. And we go back, and hey, it worked. We got to go on our excursion, and we got to do all the fun things, right? But this is the thing. We treat God like this. He's not speaking a different language. He's not from a different country. He's not, he doesn't not hear you. He knows your heart. He knows your need. He knows all the things about you. And he says, I just want to be with you. Not the people around you. You don't need to over-communicate and babble on and on and on, right? Young seminary guys have this problem. They have this problem. You go to like any seminary, it's a who can pray better moment. It was awful. Bible school, right? Like someone would say one prayer, then someone had the better prayer, then someone used a big word, and it just kept on going. Because they're like, well, if I pray the better prayer, God will hear me. But it's more, well, people will think I'm impressive, right? Like you have guys saying things like, oh, God, the tetragrammatron, almighty God of the universe, right? Your creation brings synergism as we pursue the eschatological things of your life. And it's, what did you just say? Like, I think we confuse God as well. He's like, what? What do you mean? Those didn't go together. And we do this with prayer, with people. How good can I sound? How amazing can I be? And we're just talking nonsense. And you know what Jesus says? I like it simple, to the point, and just tell me your need. Tell me the heart. I remember I learned this lesson in my early 20s very vividly. When we were with a couple in our church who they'd come, they said they wanted prayer for something happening. So we gathered all the righteous people of the church, which I think is the most valuable thing. If you want prayer, we can gather some righteous people who love God, and we'll pray over you. We'll anoint you. But we anoint them, and we're praying, and I said a prayer, and then for some reason in my mind, Satan was there in my self-righteousness. And he's like, oh, look at this nuance angle. You could pray for this and their relationship and all these things. And I go off on this long prayer that just goes nowhere. And I stop. And the moment after, one of my mentors, one of the most righteous men I know, this amazing, humble man who loves God, just speaks of the truths of God in the most simple, plain way over this couple. And I sat there saying, man, I just wanted to look good. And it's never left me that feeling. It's never left me my failure of self-righteousness to only be put down by God, I think, with this most simple, amazing, humble prayer I've ever heard. And I carry that I was babbling, right? I want to be heard. I want people to think I'm this, cool young 20s, like I'm a pastor, whatever, I can do prayer. And it just left me decimated and probably contributed nothing to the moment. He doesn't need you to look good for people in prayer. Go to your room. Go private. Seek the Father. And he moves on. I love this point that a pastor made about this passage, so I'm just going to steal it. As we live in this town, we engage with people, we pray, we serve, we give, we love, we edify. Here's the balance, right? Because this is the question. Jesus says, hey, go be salt and light, but don't practice your righteousness in front of people. And you're like, well, how do I, Jesus, what do you mean, Jesus? How do I do that? How do I align those things? And so he says this in the balance of salt and light with secret righteousness. And he finishes with this and says, go to your room, pray to your Father who's in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And this is what I loved what this pastor said. He said, God the Father is the perfect example of secret righteousness. We just look to God, right? Like Victoria and I went to Lac Lejeune the other day. This beautiful landscape, beautiful lake, right? There's fish, there's the mountains, it's kind of cloudy, the sun. And we're not just walking around there and God pops out and goes, I made this. Just so you know, this is mine. Just so you know, give me glory. Just so you know. No, he's in secret. He's in the quiet places. He's in the secret places. He's in the humble places, right? He's not popping through this door and just saying, just, guys, all that copper over there, making your town rich, that's mine. Just so you know, that's not what he does. It's not how he operates. It's not how he lives. It's not that he won't reveal himself, but he chooses to live in secret. He chooses to be in the quiet. He chooses not to make himself just known and exploding all over in this universe because he's like, I want people to pursue me, not just because I'm here and grand and telling them, but because they love me. Back to the first love. And despite everything God has done and what we do to him, right? We fail all the time as people of God. When we explain him away in science and psychology, when we destroy his creation, defame his name, he's in the secret places. He doesn't demand to be seen. He doesn't demand recognition. And I just want to finish with a Psalm 139 because this is what Jesus is getting at. Famous psalm that when we live our life for people, we diminish the reward. And Jesus is saying, listen, your whole life is before God. And it says, where can I go to escape your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to the heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I fly on the wings of the dawn and settle down on the western horizon, even there your hand will lead me. Your right hand will hold on to me. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light around me will be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night shines like the day. Darkness and light are like to you. You live your life before God. In all, through all, sees all, be all. And he says, if you live for people, if you are self-deceived, if you want righteousness, if you want your giving to be seen, your prayer to be seen, if you want to be elevated, well, guess what? You miss out on me, my heavenly reward, and you are left with the things that you've created here and now. The things that fade, the things that go away, the things that don't persist. And so we're salt and light and secret righteousness as we pursue people in this town. Like I'll say time and time again, empty row, empty row, empty row, empty row. I would love to see this place filled as we don't elevate ourselves, but we elevate God. And people start to say, why? What's good about this? what changes my life about this? What's important about this? What's the reward in this? And we can say it's the Heavenly Father. Father, we are just so grateful for all you do. We are grateful that you show us what it means to have secret righteousness, stand and we'll worship and continue to sing here.